Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope that you are doing so very well. I'm here today to do a dual review. I'm going to be reviewing Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte and Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I confess, I am not an English major. This is not going to be a really in-depth, study all the themes, study all the cool things in these books review. This is just going to be my thoughts and my take on these books. Sorry if you were expecting something in-depth because they're classics. I don't think that I have enough brain capacity to do that at the moment. I'm going to be talking about these books in a non-spoilery way at first, and then we're going to jump into the spoilery section later. It's going to be pretty evenly split, so you can keep watching if you haven't read these books. Let's get started! Let's start with Wuthering Heights. This book is about two different families that live in two different houses that are pretty close together. There are the Earnshaws who live at Wuthering Heights, and the Lintons who live at Thrushcross Grange. At first, it mostly follows the Earnshaws. The kids in that family are Catherine and Hindley, and after their dad brings him home from a business trip, a gypsy boy named Heathcliff. Heathcliff becomes part of their family, and then eventually their father comes to love Heathcliff more than his own children. Catherine gets over it and her and Heathcliff become buds, but Hindley never gets over it, and that's a major player in this novel. A little bit later, the Lintons are introduced. There's Edgar and Isabella and their parents, and just things happen. Things happen. The latter third of this book, I would say, is about the generation following that generation, the kids of all of those people, and how they all come together. This novel was interesting because all of the characters are very problematic and have really problematic relationships. Whether you're talking about any of the romantic relationships or any of the friendships or like companionships that they have, all of them have a lot of problems. All of the characters in this novel are extremely flawed, and they all really feel like they have to get back at each other for certain things. When I was reading this, I was thinking about Gone Girl and how flawed those characters are, and that's what it kind of reminded me of. Another really interesting thing about this novel is that it is told through a bunch of different people. I didn't know this going in, but the narrator, the actual real narrator of this book is Mr. Lockwood. The stories of these families are told to him by Nellie or Ellen Dean, who grew up with the first generation of kids and was a housekeeper during the second generation. So you're getting this story through a bunch of different people, so there's a lot of bias there. Lockwood has bias, Ellen has bias, everybody has a lot of bias when it comes to the story, so that makes for a really interesting novel because you don't really know what the actual real story is. You only know how it is told through these different people. I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now for Catcher in the Rye. The main character of this book is named Holden, and he has just been expelled from his upteenth school, and this follows his journey back home after he's been expelled. He decides to stay a couple days in New York so his parents don't know right away that he has been expelled, and this is just his story over those couple days. This novel is really interesting because Holden is such a unique character. It is told from Holden's point of view, and he's a really interesting narrator because he's very depressed, which is apparent because he talks about it a lot and talks about death a lot, but he also just kind of wanders and is aimless through most of this book. And also he's very random and very sporadic in how he puts thoughts together. I hadn't heard a lot of great things about Catcher in the Rye. A lot of people don't like it, but I really enjoyed it because of his sporadic narrating nature. That's really how my mind works. It goes from one place to the next to the next to the next. So I enjoyed reading a book written like that. Even if nothing happens in this book, it's just Holden living his life, it's still interesting because of how he chooses to narrate. I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Now we're gonna jump into a little bit of a spoilery section, so if you haven't read these books or you don't want to be spoiled, peace out, we'll see you next time. Let's talk about Wuthering Heights. I didn't really connect with these characters a lot, so when the majority of them died, I didn't really care that much. Because to be honest, Catherine and Heathcliff's relationship, Catherine and Edgar's relationship, they're all terrible. Heathcliff treats Catherine so terribly, so poorly. Both of their mentalities are just so messed up. Like, you don't love me, I'm gonna leave for 3 years and then come back to haunt you. Oh, you don't love me, I'm gonna cry myself sick and then die. I wasn't really super invested in it. I wanted to know what happened, but I wasn't invested in this story. I didn't like Heathcliff that much. I thought that he was really mean and really dumb and just not great. I thought Catherine was a huge drama queen because crying yourself until you're sick. That happens to her multiple times. She doesn't just get over something. She has to like let everybody know she's upset and then cry so much and do so much that she dies. Catherine dying didn't really affect me a ton. Like I said, I just thought she was being dumb, so the whole like tense scene between her and Heathcliff, I was like, whatever. Edgar was probably the best out of the three, but he still wasn't a great person, even though he did care for Catherine a lot. In the second generation, I liked Catherine a little bit better, young Catherine. Hareton, kind of, like, I feel like if he didn't have those things influencing him, like Heathcliff and Joseph, he would have been a lot better, but he was still kind of like, eh. And also, friggin' Linton. Linton was obnoxious, and I was so mad when Catherine agreed to marry him and was like loving him because he was the only guy she knew, because I was like, you deserve better, girl. He is not good for you, and he is whiny, and he is a brat. Later, when Linton dies, I was like, whatever. When anybody dies, I was just like, whatever. Probably the most emotional death was Edgar, because Catherine was like kept from him for so long, and then she finally gets to the room and he just like dies as soon as he sees her because he's seen her and now he's happy. I kind of liked Ellen, Nellie, if you will. She was alright besides her whole like biased storytelling thing. She was still a pretty good constant, but she still messed up. Many a time I was like, why you do that, Nellie? Why are you doing that? Stop. Wait a minute. Fill my cup. So yeah, those were really all the spoilers that I want to talk about because not that much happens besides like the love stories, and I didn't love that much about it. Now, Catcher in the Rye. Holden was very standoffish throughout this book, so he didn't really have a lot of relationships with people. There weren't a lot of main characters. I did like his relationship with Phoebe, and those scenes at the very end with the two of them. They were just great, and just him having a release from the depression and seeing his sister go around on the carousel and knowing everything was going to be okay. That was great. I was really sad about, you know, his brother Alfie and like his whole deal with that, because obviously Holden was not over his brother's death at all. He was still needing to deal with it and still needing to work through it, and his parents obviously have like, his mom's still sad all the time, but she doesn't want to talk about it, so he's kind of alone in missing his brother. The whole thing that happened with his teacher, where his teacher was like petting his head and it was kind of sexual, and then he was like, this has happened to me a lot before, and I was like, Holden, dude, you obviously are gonna have some issues because of that. There are probably a lot of things that have triggered his depression because so much crap has happened to him, like his brother dying and people molesting him. Like, what? I liked how he was very blunt with people and very like, I want to know things. Like, he would just talk to people and be like, I just decided I want to talk to them. I was like, alright, Holden, you just go talk to those nuns. And also that scene when he invites the prostitute in and he just wants to like talk to her. Oh, Holden, precious little baby Holden who doesn't know anything about anything. Overall, I enjoyed this. I'm glad that I read it because I really just liked Holden as a character. He's really interesting, really different, and that is what I loved about this book. So yeah, those were my thoughts on these two books. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed reading them, even though it took me for freaking ever. Let me know if you like these books or if you've read them at all down below. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye. You can do things, Maureen. Cross Grange. Mr. Thornfield. Nope, that is not his name. Stop. 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 Can you not? There are dogs barking. Can you hear that? I bet you can hear that. What? Mom? I don't know what I was saying. Those were my thoughts on the Wuthering Heights that were spoilers. Can we not? Can we not do this? Those freaking dogs, I swear.